Plenty of players took the field today as the Bucs begin OTAs. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky WTSP. We are your credentialed members of the media covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Evan, of course, is on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And you can check out this show Monday through Friday along with the Everydayers. For that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All right. Lots to talk about as the Buccaneers begin OTAs, and we're going to get, Evan, your initial takeaways in just a minute, but I want to start with the players that were not in attendance, and they were Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, Luke Goedeke, Levante David, Greg Gaines, Sua Opeta, Luke Haggard, and Haason Reddick. The thing that I want to point to here is the absence of Reddick, because there were a lot of people freaking out that he was not there. First and foremost, just a reminder, these are voluntary workouts. So it's great when some of the older vets are there. I think it would have been nice for Reddick to be there. Not a big deal that he's not, but I think a lot of people, Evan, are having flashbacks to Randy Gregory, who was a no-show from the minute he signed his contract. I don't think it's that serious. And I just want to caution people to relax and calm down, because I do not think that Reddick is going to pull a Gregory. And it's really okay that he's not at OTAs. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, it's certainly a little bit of Randy Gregory PTSD. I do understand it from the fact that there was a lot of these issues last year when he was with the Jets and not showing up right. And, so there's a lot of PTSD in this equation. Is it time to worry? Absolutely not. I think Reddick would probably do himself some favors just to show up, which would quell any of the discussions. But and not to mention you're with the new team, new scheme. But, having said that, week one on the field, typically it is some foundational stuff. So for a player that's been around the block like Reddick, I don't know how even right now, to give you an example, Grizzard wasn't even doing call-it periods day one. And that's obviously super important for Grizzard to go through the call-it periods. But this is such a foundational, fundamental type of deal that, maybe he's going to show up 2 and 3, right? We know that Mike Evans has been here, Luke Goedeke, Tristan Wirfs, they've all been in the building, bobbing and weaving. It's just some of this stuff is a little bit, not necessary for them. But, for other guys like Antoine and trying to think, Jamel, dudes who are on their second contracts, obviously the quarterback is always there. And Baker, Kyle Trask, trying to think of some other, who else? I'll think of some others. But regardless, some of those guys, it's nice when they show up, but certainly it's nothing that should be worrisome for not being there.
Yeah, everybody just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. All right, but now that that's over with, let's start with kind of your takeaways from day one out there, with the vast majority of the team working out today. I saw that you were there. You were posting some things on Twitter about it, but what were kind of your initial takeaways here from day one of these OTAs?
Nothing crazy really from what I saw. It was nice to see Servassier Dennis get an interception on Baker during an offensive-defensive portion. Of course, I do remind everyone it's underwear football. Mm-hmm. But just, good vibes, good energy, really tough to decipher the wrinkles that Grizzard is going to have on this offense based on what we saw, considering that I think Graham Barton put it foundationally, it's the same. But then when you start talking about a little bit of the tweaks and the nuances, then you're going to see some differentiation between Grizz and Liam Cohen. So we're not in that phase of knowing the differentiations, but I was pleased with the showing, to be honest. I understand there were like 10 guys who weren't really there, but it does seem like a good chunk of those were also body management. Like Luke Gedicke was off to the side very quickly with a trainer. Todd Bowles said that none of these management type of deals should have an issue with training camp. He said that he's not expecting anyone to miss the beginning of that with an injury outside of, maybe Chris Godwin, who's working back with from his well-known injury there. Saw Bryce Hall out there coming off of that gnarly injury last year. Benjamin Morrison was out there. So Christian Izien was present but not playing yet. So, there are still some of those things that we're kind of keeping note of. But all systems are a go. A team that, is pretty much put together from one year to the next, thanks to the draft classes that Jason Light has continued to keep in town. So, yeah, I don't have really any grandiose takeaways. We'll get into what some of the people had to say, which you're taking at face value. But also Egbuka, I saw make a couple of catches, and he continues to look the part. That's the best I can give you in underwear football.
So you didn't walk away from day one of OTAs and going, just book the Super Bowl now.
Super Bowl, baby.
I already have my plane tickets to Santa Clara. Yeah. We're doing this thing.
Yeah, I mean, let's go for it. No, that's the thing. I don't like to exaggerate some of the things that we see out there. I say the same stuff for training camp, but at least training camp, you can start getting a feel for what the offense is going to look like. I don't really care about results as much as maybe the structure, the way that the plays are being called, right? We can see the motions. We can see all this type of stuff, and I can decipher a little bit of that. Today was very much foundationally, nothing that I'm really I can take one way or the other. It just seemed like pretty much, floor, first level type of stuff. And I don't want people to get carried away with what's happening. And as I said, Servassier Dennis, the fact that he caught a ball, that a defender caught a ball is a good thing because more defenders need to catch the ball. So underwear football, Nerf balls, I don't care. I want to see defenders catch something. And so they got to improve from 7 interceptions. So that is good on top of what we saw from Jacob Parrish in his rookie minicamp stuff, right? We want to see those interceptions. And that was a funny bite from Todd Bowles was, we've done the pass breakups. We've done the tips. I need them securing the thing. I need them catching it. So that's very important in this process.
Yeah, everybody's excited that football is back, but football's not really back. It's just kind of like a little teaser.
100 days away.
It's an appetizer to training camp.
The amuse-bouche.
Yes, the amuse-bouche. Very nicely done. All right. Well, Todd Bowles, he wants to see them securing the ball, but he also had some other interesting comments following practice. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. The Thunder bounced back after their blowout loss in Game 3 to take a commanding 3-1 lead over the Timberwolves, while the Pacers look to take that same lead over the Knicks before heading back to Madison Square Garden. The Thunder are becoming a bigger favorite by the day to win the NBA Finals at -420, followed by the Pacers at +650, the Knicks at +1200, and the Minnesota Timberwolves at a whopping +4100. You can even get in on Finals MVP, where SGA leads the pack at -400, followed by Tyrese Halliburton at +800 and Jalen Brunson at +1600. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So Todd Bowles spoke with the media after practice today, as he typically does, and he mentioned a few interesting things, but I want to start with his comments about a couple of the linebackers, since that seems to be a big concern regarding Bucs fans right now. And he spoke about Anthony Walker, how intelligent of a player that he is, how he has fit in so well already, and it almost feels like he's been here the entire time. And then you already mentioned it, Servassier Dennis has an interception off of Baker Mayfield, and Bowles said that basically that's the kind of player that he is, and they just need to keep him healthy. I realize it's OTAs. I realize it's day one of OTAs, but should Bucs fans start to be a little more cautiously optimistic about the linebackers on this roster?
Depends where we are at a starting point. I don't think this is going to be it's certainly an improved unit. How improved is going to be the question. And around this time last year, we were all very bullish on a guy named KJ Britt. Mm-hmm. Very quickly, we realized he was not the guy that we saw the year prior. And I am a big fan of Servassier Dennis, but he is still an unknown, generally speaking. We can put the Lions tape on, and we can get all excited about that. But in the end, is he still that guy? B, can he stay healthy? And even behind him, Anthony Walker, who's probably a better option still versus KJ Britt. What is his value? Is he going to go back to how he looked when he was with I'm blanking on Eagles defensive coordinator right now.
Oh, goodness.
Just won a Super Bowl. Pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
This is Vic Fangio. Thank you. Jesus
yes.
Christ. Thank you, Google. Vic Fangio. When he was with Fangio, he was a lot better than without him. And so with a really good defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles, who wants to rush 4, right, which was kind of like Vic Fangio this year, would Anthony Walker thrive in that sort of system, especially because he's much better in coverage? I'm just wondering if the Bucs said, hey, let's allow our defensive front, all the things we do so well up there, if we hold our water in that regard, maybe we can sacrifice a little bit from the linebacker position so that we can take care of coverage, make Levante David less blitzy, more run stopping, and then have that other piece kind of worry about the coverage and work from there. So I'm intrigued to see how this Bowles defensive system looks and evolves throughout, next time we see him on Tuesday, the mandatory stuff, and then into training camp. That's what I really want to see. So I wouldn't be too down on this linebacker group, but I certainly don't think that the position is fixed by any means either. If you were to tell me right now
Levante David and Servassier Dennis are going to be healthy every game this season, I would be really excited. But I'm just not so sure, considering you have one guy who is, year 14, and the other guy who hasn't proven he can stay healthy. So until, there are just some natural questions there. So let's hope they go for 17. I'll be really happy, but I'm still sort of in between of believing in the group and also having some skepticism.
All right. Evan Klosky just said Servassier Dennis, Anthony Walker, and Levante David are all Pro Bowlers. That's what I heard. I don't know if you heard the same thing, but that's what
You either heard they're all Pro Bowlers or you heard
they're all injured reserve.
Yeah. They're all going on the IR. And then James is going to have to come in and play inside linebacker.
I'll do it for cheap, man. I won't be very good, but I'll do it for cheap.
Can you make it through one play in the NFL?
Through one play? At what position?
Linebacker. And it's going to have to be a run right into your gap.
I mean, I would survive the play. I'd probably get what running back am I facing? Am I having to go up against Derrick Henry?
Yes.
Or
Henry.
He'll flatten me, but I'll survive. I'll walk off under my own power, and I'll take my.
You don't think you'll get a concussion? You don't think you take a concussion? You don't think you break a bone?
Oh, I might end up with a concussion. I don't think I'd break a bone. Then again, I'm old and I have a titanium spine, so I'm already being held together by zip ties and
bubble gum,
duct tape. But the other thing that Todd said that kind of jumped out to me, and I wanted to get kind of your feel on this, but he talked about the competition level among the corners, and he said that you could feel that competition brewing basically since draft day, and that the competition is going to be really heavy heading into training camp. You already mentioned it. Jamel Dean was out there. Zion was out there. Benjamin Morrison, Bryce Hall, Jacob Parrish. All these guys are out there. Did you get a sense being out there that these guys in the quarterback group are already starting to get after one another and try to position themselves even before training camp even starts?
Yeah, I mean, definitely from that secondary, you're feeling that a little bit. And what I love the most from what I've heard about that group entering the season during this offseason is how they are now joining the safeties and the cornerbacks into meetings. So all the DBs are getting together. They felt like communication was not something that was good enough last year and needed to be improved upon. And so the hope is now that they're all in the same room talking, that is going to be better moving forward. So I love the competition. I think it's going to bring the best guys out there. It always does. Having said that, I also believe we might see a bunch of hybrid stuff go on, right? Like Tyke Smith is going to start at safety, but one of those things that was mentioned from Todd was like he's a safety, but he's always a nickel. So I do think there's going to be some, you got Isian. He can play safety and nickel. You got Parrish, who they think can play corner and nickel. They have a lot of these kind of hybrid-ish type of players, and you wonder if Todd can amoeba his way into some really interesting looks, defensively speaking. So I think the competition is evident. I love that the communication has been jacked up, and that is a group I'm probably more bullish on than the way that I was talking about linebackers and linebackers being a question mark. The corners group and the DB group as a whole, I'm actually a pretty big fan of. And I know some people out there probably want Tyke to stay at nickel, but if they can fulfill that nickel slot and move Tyke to safety, I think that would be a home run transition.
Yeah, I mean, Zion said it today after practice was Parrish is a dog. Like that's what he said. Parrish is a dog.
That's what I said, right? You can go back when I said my favorite. That dude is a dog. He is. You watch a tape. That he is a dog. DAGG.
Yeah, you 100% did. But yeah, I was a big fan of leaving Tyke at nickel. But if Parrish is going to come in and be that dude, then yeah, it just adds to the versatility of that group. And with the injuries that we saw run rampant through the entire secondary, that versatility, I think, is something that Bowles is going to be able to utilize. He's going to be happy to have, because it adds to the depth of the position group. So hopefully they don't go through all the injuries. We know Jamel Dean's going to miss like 3.5 games.
He had a nice pass breakup as well.
But he didn't secure it. Todd Bowles wants it secured.
Yeah, I mean, though I will say the play that was the pass breakup, I mean, that was never going to be intercepted. So it wasn't like sitting there and bopped off his hand. It was like, break to the ball and swatted away. So, but yeah, I mean, it will be a look. Nothing's going to be given to Dean, so he's going to have to fight for it. So that will be interesting as well. But I mean, to me, Dean is still going to be out there next to Zion game 1. I still think it's his job to lose.
Yeah, and that's number 1 on my list of training camp position battles to watch is the corners. The next group, it's going to be the wide receivers, because Bowles wasn't the only one that spoke to the media on Tuesday. We heard from one of the members of the best receiver room in the NFL. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Wrapping things up here on a WTSP edition of Locked On Bucs, and there weren't a lot of receivers in the NFL hotter than Jalen McMillan was over the last 5 weeks of the 2024 season, and now he's got Emeka Egbuka joining him. He's got Mike Evans in the room. He's got Chris Godwin in the room, but McMillan knows that he can't walk in expecting to just magically replicate that success that he had at the end of last year. So he had told the media that, things he needs to work on to get better this year. Primarily, he's focusing a lot on his footwork. He wants to get a little bit stronger. He wants to work on getting a little bit faster. But, Evan, what kind of role do you expect McMillan to have this season with Egbuka and Tez Johnson joining the fold? Plus, you have the uncertainty surrounding Godwin's health to at least start the season. But, I'm not kidding when I say I'm watching Emeka versus Jalen as a legit wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 competition that it may not come to fruition in week 1, but by the end of the season, we can be talking about Egbuka as the wide receiver 3, the cemented wide receiver 3 on this team.
Yeah, I think that first off, I do want to praise Jalen because he wanted to get stronger, and he looks bigger, like at least his upper body, what we can see, like his arms, that looks bigger. So that's good to see. He definitely needed to get his weight up. Having said that, I do believe that he's probably a number 3, number 4-ish type of receiver. So I think you've now slotted him appropriately to where he should be. And that's not to say that he needed to be demoted. It's just, I don't know how good of a blocker Jalen is. I don't know if that's really going to be his game. And so when you think about who plays those early down roles as a wide receiver, you got to be out there blocking, right? You got to block. And I don't know if that's his calling card. So having him out there on third downs or on 4 wide receiver sets or 2-minute drills, that's probably where I see Jalen McMillan. And he can still be a really darn good wide receiver in that role. It's just you need other people to kind of step up and do a little bit more of the dirty work. Not saying he can't do that. You have guys like Godwin and Egbuka and Mike Evans, who really have set a good foundation in doing so. I think Rakim Jarrett also is a pretty decent blocking wide receiver. I love what Ryan Miller does out there. Obviously, when you talk about people like Ryan Miller, you talk about, Ryan Miller doesn't have the athleticism and the ceiling that Jalen McMillan has on the receiving side of things. So there is a tipping point of where you can't. I'm not out here saying that that's all that matters. I'm just saying why I believe that you have a more well-rounded room that can work with the skill sets that you have. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with Egbuka snatching up some of Jalen snaps, he's a first-round pick. Jalen was a third-round pick, right? Wouldn't it be a little bit weird if Egbuka, we didn't have a higher ceiling on McMillan? And it's not like McMillan was all that in his rookie season, right? It was up and down and then up. I mean, he ended super strong. We love that. But there are some little things that he needs to take a step in moving forward. So I think when projecting McMillan, he's probably best suited to be a 3 in the offense. I think Egbuka is a 1 or 2 type of wide receiver for an offense. And then, Mike and Chris, we don't know how long they're going to last, but at some point, the Buccaneers are going to need another alpha out there, when we have this discussion in 3 years. So those are things that I look at with McMillan, but he's going to be a piece in this offense. He's going to be an important piece in this offense. So while it might not be the every down role that maybe he wants, he's still going to be critically important to this team reaching a Super Bowl.
Well, first and foremost, Mike and Chris are infinite. They're immortal.
That's
and
right.
They are inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Evans will still be the wide receiver 1 by time I have grandchildren.
Yes.
But, I guess kind of the way that I would approach this is you don't expect Egbuka to come in and just immediately start taking snaps from McMillan. But I understand your point of, Egbuka is a fantastic run blocker, and you're going to need those on the field in the earlier downs. I think kind of the big sticking point in this entire conversation is the uncertainty and the unknown around Chris Godwin. Because if Godwin isn't ready to go, Egbuka is your slot receiver right from the jump. And that kind of changes the landscape of how they're going to be able to utilize these wide receivers.
And everybody's going to be able to help give Chris and Mike some more breathing room, right? You don't have, they want Chris Godwin to be back week 1 of the regular season. That's the expectation. But nobody says that he's going to go out there and log 80% of the snaps, right? He might get out there and play 10 plays. We don't know any of that stuff yet. The fact is you can ease Chris Godwin back into his role, supplement him with Egbuka, and then have McMillan and Mike working on the edges. And then when Chris is at full strength, you can maybe move Egbuka a little bit more outside to keep him on the field, and we'll see what happens there. But that's my whole point, is that even McMillan said, I'm not too hung up on if I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it might be, whatever the play they need me to make, I'm just going to worry about that. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is just taking care of business when he gets called upon, because he is going to be needed. So that's like Rachaad White. I don't know. It's very clear that Bucky's the number 1. But Rachaad White is going to be valuable to the offensive operation. He's going to play on third downs. He's going to be a 2-minute drill type of guy. He's going to have to spell Bucky. They can't just run Bucky into the ground. So, all these guys, sometimes I think in discourse and discussion about things, we talk about who the starter is. And you always have to know that this isn't the NBA playoffs where you just run some guy the entire time. It is probably the best team sport that exists, and that Jalen McMillan is going to be a critical part of this offense, whether he's getting 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% snaps. And we might see a whole range of that throughout the year, depending on personnel, depending on how the team looks, how he performs, so on and so forth. So we might see him go from 30 to 80 at some point in this. His variance on snap share is going to, I think, be huge versus some other people who are either like offensive linemen who always are at 100%, right? It's 100 or 0 usually without an injury. I think with him in the wide receiver gap, where Mike usually hangs around maybe that 70 mark, that 70, 80 mark all season. I see maybe his fluctuating a little bit, but I'm still a McMillan believer. I want to just continue to state that. It's just with Egbuka, you have more options now to really lengthen your lineup out.
We might have to add that to the crystal ball segment during the season. We're going to have to do the crystal ball snap share count for McMillan and Egbuka. We could do an over under every week. just to see where you
we'll
think
see when
they're
Chris,
going to be.
Yeah, and we'll see if we got to do this when Chris is fully healthy. But
100%. Yeah,
I think it's the more that we inch closer to the season, which we still got a lot of time, the more we inch closer to the season, I think the more it feels like Godwin is going to be eased into his role. And even if he's back week 1, I don't know if he will be back. I think we will have maybe a limited snap count, and they will try to make sure that he's hitting full stride as the season wears on to protect him. So I think that's really
put him out there on third downs. Put him out there on third downs, and we're good to go.
It might be something simple like that, but yeah, I mean, the Buccaneers now are looking to win Super Bowls, and they got to manage bodies to get there, and everyone's dealing with injuries. You're certainly not going to hear anyone from the Detroit Lions crying, that fan base, about everything they had to endure last year. But you got to try to manage your bodies to make it to January as healthy as can be. And having Chris and Mike and your full arsenal of weapons at that time, that is of the utmost importance. So there's no need to rush Chris back. You have the bodies. You can still run your offense now. Let's make sure that you're 100%, and let's be 100% about that.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. All right, Evan,
Correct.
What do we have going on over on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app?
First off, we have the Ultimate Florida Sports Show, which you can find on 10 Tampa Bay Plus, joined with my friend Chris Porter there in Jacksonville. We now that we have some OTAs, we will be talking Bucs, Jaguars, a little bit of Dolphins there as well. So that's always fun. Obviously, Rays are going on right now. They're on a bit of a heater, which is great. They got back to 500. So continue to check me out at eClosky WTSP. You can find me at 6 and 11 o'clock on 10 Tampa Bay. You can also find me on 10 Tampa Bay Plus and 10tampabay.com.
All right. Yeah, make sure you're checking all that stuff out. Please make sure that you are following on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JRCO_Bucs, at eClosky WTSP. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube with those notifications turned on so you know every time a new episode drops, as well as wherever you get your podcast. We're on TikTok now. If you're a TikTok, go ahead and follow over there. That's at Locked On Bucs. And become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.